Back in 2011, I was part of a small crew that documented abandoned sites for a niche YouTube series called Rust Plus Ruin. Most of it was exploring empty warehouses or forgotten homes with peeling wallpaper and raccoon droppings. Not exactly spine-tingling content. But when our inbox filled with requests to check out the old Peoria State Hospital in Illinois, we decided to pay attention. I didn't know the full story until later. They said a man named a bookbinder nicknamed Old Book was a patient there over 100 years ago. Not dangerous, not deranged, just broken. He couldn't speak, but he worked quietly and faithfully as a gravedigger for the hospital's cemetery. The story goes that when he died, the staff, doctors, and patients alike claimed to hear weeping coming from the cemetery for days. Even now, long after the place shut down, some people say they still hear it. We arrived just after sunset, which was already mistake number one. My buddy Eli insisted on getting those golden hour shots, but that meant we were navigating overgrown trails and collapsing porches in the dark. The hospital itself was eerie boarded-up windows, paint peeling like old skin, the air thick with mold and something coppery, like rusted metal. But it was the cemetery I couldn't stop staring at. It sat just beyond a line of decaying trees behind the main hospital building, half swallowed by nature. What caught my eye was a massive elm at the edge of the burial ground, roots like gnarled fingers twisting out of the earth. And something about the air around it felt off, still, like even the wind avoided it. Eli was setting up his gear, but I wandered toward the tree. Just wanted a quick glance, I told myself. The cemetery was eerily quiet, no insects, no wind. I counted 6 or 7 headstones barely sticking out of the earth, like forgotten teeth. Then I heard it, a sob, low, raspy, like a grown man choking on grief. I froze. It wasn't coming from the hospital. It was close. From under the elm. I ducked behind a crumbling headstone, not even sure why I was hiding, and peered through the branches. There was a man standing there, bent slightly, like he was carrying some invisible weight. He wore old-fashioned clothes, suspenders, high-waisted trousers, and a grimy button-up shirt. His hands trembled as he wiped at his face, though I couldn't see tears. Just dot, 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 slow, broken sobs echoing across the cold ground. I backed away, snapping a twig. He stopped. I swear to you, he didn't look at me, but he turned his head toward me. The movement was slow, deliberate, as if he'd known I was there the whole time. His face was long, sunken, pale as if drained of blood. His eyes, dot, dot, they weren't angry. They weren't even surprised. They just looked tired. Then, without a sound, he turned and vanished behind the tree. I rushed over, adrenaline surging, and he was gone. I even circled the tree twice, shouting for Eli. But there were no tracks, no footsteps, just soft, dry earth and dead leaves. When I got back to the hospital entrance, Eli was already packing up. "Dude," he said, not even looking up. "Someone was crying out there, right?" I heard it through my mic. I thought it was you. I didn't answer. Not until we were back at the motel, scrubbing through the audio. We isolated the track from when I'd been near the cemetery. There were the usual ambient noise as our footsteps, some crunching leaves. Then came the sobs. Real, heavy, human, but that wasn't the worst part. Right at the end of the track, just before I returned, we caught a whisper. Not from me. Not from Eli. A whisper so faint we had to boost it 3 times. It said, "Still digging." I didn't sleep that night. Neither did Eli. We never aired that footage, not out of fear, but out of respect. Somehow it felt wrong. Like we weren't supposed to bring him to the screen. A few months later, I looked up the old hospital again. I found a scanned newspaper clipping from the 1940s. Apparently, during renovations, a new janitor found fresh dirt piled over an unmarked grave near that same elm. No one knew who put it there. The ground hadn't been touched in decades. Sometimes when I close my eyes, I still see him, bent over, hands shaking, digging. and sobbing for the dead because maybe, just maybe, he never left. Not really. I wasn't looking for anything supernatural. I just wanted to impress my girlfriend. Back in 2018, I took a weekend trip to Colfax, Washington with my then girlfriend, Mara. She was into haunted history, abandoned asylums, cursed paintings, that kind of thing. Me? I liked having a reason to hold her close in the dark. So when we found out you could book a nighttime ghost tour at the old St. Ignatius Hospital, she signed us up without blinking. The place looked like something straight out of a movie 5 stories tall, looming over the quiet town like it was daring people to step inside. The guide, an older woman with a raspy voice and too much perfume, led our group of 10 through the main lobby, up crumbling chapel, and down a long hallway filled with antique medical equipment that probably hadn't been cleaned in decades. She told us about the night nuns, a nickname for the sisters who used to run the place back when it opened in the late 1800s. They worked brutal overnight shifts, caring for the dying in the cholera wing, where most nurses refused to go. Some supposedly never left. One story claimed a nun was found dead in the stairwell, face frozen in terror, her fingers bloodied from clawing at the wall. Mara was eating it up, clinging to my arm. I was mostly rolling my eyes, until we got to the 5th floor. The guide stopped at the foot of the stairs. "No one goes up there anymore," she said. "The floor's unstable, and that's where they used to live." Someone in the back asked if it was haunted. The guide hesitated. "Sometimes people hear footsteps pacing above this hallway, or see lights flicker in the windows. But that floor's been sealed for years." We moved on, but something about the guide's face stuck with me. She looked genuinely disturbed. Later, when the tour ended, Mara convinced me to sneak off for one last photo. We ducked out of the group, crept back to the base of the stairs leading to the nuns' floor, and took a few shots with her phone. I remember the air felt heavy, like being underwater. The stairwell smelled like mildew and mothballs, and something faintly metallic. "I just want one more," she whispered, stepping up onto the first stair. Before I could grab her, every single light in the hallway behind us flickered violently, then died. We froze in total darkness. That's when we heard it. Click, click, click. Footsteps, measured, sharp, coming from the floor above us. I turned my phone flashlight on and pointed it up the stairwell. No one. But the steps continued. Mara clutched my hand and whispered, "We should go." We backed away slowly, and that's when I saw it. On the 5th floor landing, through a crack in the wooden boards that sealed the floor off, a figure was standing behind the glass. Just standing there, perfectly still. The light from my phone caught the edge of a white habit, a nun's veil, and a pale face watching us. The eyes weren't angry. They weren't sad. They were blank, hollow. I blinked and she was gone. We ran, full sprint, down the hallway and out the front doors, not stopping until we reached the parking lot. We didn't say a word in the car, but when we got back to the hotel, Mara checked her photos. Most were blurry, except one. In the final picture, taken just before the lights went out, the frame shows the staircase, empty, but if you zoom in at the top, in the shadows, you can just barely make out a figure. White veil, pale hand on the railing. We tried to show the tour guide the next morning. She wouldn't look at the photo. She just said, "You're lucky she watched you from the window. The ones who follow usually come from behind." I don't talk about it much. Mara and I broke up a year later, but I still keep the photo, not for proof, for warning, because ever since that night, I wake up sometimes around 3 a.m. and I hear it again. Click, 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 coming up the stairs, and I don't live on the 1st floor. When I was 19, my friends dared me to spend 5 minutes alone in the body chute at Waverly Hills Sanatorium in Louisville, Kentucky. We'd taken one of those overnight ghost tours, half for the thrill, half for content for my barely functioning horror channel. Everyone knows the stories. The tuberculosis patients, the experimental treatments, and the long, dark tunnel where they wheeled out the dead to keep morale up. Over 500 feet of concrete sloping down into the woods. But standing at the top of it in person, that was different. The air was heavy with mildew and dust, and even though it was early summer, the tunnel was cold. Like underground cold. You could see your breath just a few steps in. The guide, a guy in his late 30s with too many keychains on his belt, joked about not staying in the chute alone unless you want to meet the orderly. No one laughed. Still, my friends pushed me, said I was the brave one, so I went. Just me, a flashlight, and a shaky GoPro strapped to my chest. The first 20 feet were uneventful, just dark walls, the tunnel narrowing as it sloped downward. My footsteps echoed. I could hear the water dripping somewhere far off. Then I heard a second set of footsteps. I stopped. They didn't. Just one extra step, soft, offbeat, like someone was trying to match my pace but got it wrong. I turned around. Nothing behind me but a wall of darkness. "All right, haha," I said out loud, thinking maybe one of the others had followed me. "You got me." No answer. I kept walking. My flashlight flickered once, then again, longer. It dimmed just enough to make the shadows seem fuller, like they were stretching. At the 40-foot mark, the temperature dropped even more. My breath came out in thick clouds, and my fingers were getting numb despite the warm night outside. And then I smelled it. Hospital disinfectant, old bleach. And underneath that, something worse, rot. I started to turn back. I'd had enough. But when I turned around, something was standing at the top of the slope. Far enough away I couldn't see the face, but close enough that I knew it was watching me. It wasn't one of my friends. It was too tall, dressed in a white coat, old-fashioned, like something out of a 1930s medical photo. And it didn't move, didn't shift, didn't blink, just stood. I slowly took a step back. The figure didn't follow. But the second I moved, I heard another noise behind me. Wheels, metal, a stretcher, rolling along the tunnel floor. But there was no one there. I whipped around, nothing. Turned back, the figure was gone. That's when my flashlight died completely. I bolted. I don't even remember half the climb back up. I just remember scraping my hands on the concrete wall, slipping on the wet ground, and not daring to look behind me. When I finally burst out into the open air, gasping, my friends were waiting laughing, until they saw my face. I was pale, shaking, bleeding from a cut I didn't remember getting. We left right after that. That night I reviewed the GoPro footage. Most of it was too dark, but around the 42-second mark, when I turned the first corner, something flickered into view. Just for a frame, a face, half covered by a surgical mask, eyes wide, staring into the camera. It wasn't mine. I've never uploaded that video. Sometimes I still wake up with the taste of disinfectant in my nose. And once, only once, I swear I heard metal wheels outside my apartment door at 3:12 in the morning. But when I looked through the peephole, no one was there. Only the faint echo of something rolling slowly away.